A very warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a very special event from the Linbury Studio Theatre at the Royal Opera House. Welcome to you, our audience here this evening, and to you at home or wherever you may be watching as we stream live across the world. Tonight, we explore the art of singing as part of a month-long Deloitte Ignite Festival right here in London's Covent Garden. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by three incredibly talented individuals from very different sides of singing, lots of different genres covered and lots of different talent, who will not only be discussing their ability this evening, and lovely discussion about that, but also, well, maybe get a couple of them to sing for you this evening as well. So shall we meet them? Our audience here, shall we meet them? Yes! To my right then, he's been rehearsing all day for the marriage of Figaro. He's from Uruguay. He's a world-class international opera star. It's bass baritone, the Brando of opera. Please give a huge round of applause to Erwin Schrott. You've got to love that, Erwin. You like that?
I'm very used to it.
You like it? Who's not going to love the Brando of opera? That's a great introduction. Next to Erwin, a British singer-songwriter who released 2 albums to commercial and critical success. She released her 3rd album early this year, and is next year embarks on a huge UK tour to celebrate and promote that album. She's come a very long and successful way from being runner-up on the X Factor, and we're very lucky to have her here to perform and talk to us this evening. It's the gorgeous Rebecca Ferguson. It was wonderful earlier on today, actually, whilst I arrived and you were rehearsing, and you could just hear this voice resonating around the room. It was wonderful. And next to Rebecca, don't look so coy there in the corner, an actor and singer whose versatility and talent means he's just at home making films, performing at the proms or on the London stage. You might recognise him as Charles Blake from ITV's Downton Abbey, but he also possesses one of the most wonderful tenor voices, and, well, lucky for us, musical theatre is just one of his great loves. Please give a huge round of applause and welcome Julian Ovenden. So, I guess the first place we should start is how and when you first discovered that you had a voice and that you could sing and you wanted to sing. Erwin, can I start with you?
First.
Okay, ladies first.
Oh,
Rebecca.
My earliest memory of wanting to sing was age 3, which sounds really young, and it was young. And I just remember being in my nan's house and she had visitors over, and they were trying to keep me quiet because I was obviously being that loud kid as you are. And they gave me a piece of paper, and rather than drawing squiggles, I was saying, oh, I'm writing a song. And so from quite a young age, I always knew that I wanted to sing. It was something that some people say, oh, I decided when I was a certain age, but with me, I never wanted to be anything else, really. Yeah.
Erwin, what about for you? Was there a moment when you discovered that voice, when you knew you had that voice?
It was more about the people that I discovered, but not really me. It was a very early age, and the first time that I sang an opera, I was 7 years and a half. And since then, I have not had a single day of peace. And now the thing is that, of course, in the school, I was always the solo voice, and in the chorus, I was the solo voice again. And it had been, I mean, I never had a choice. As simple as that. The rest is, well, right now I'm 42 years old, and I have been enjoying all these past beautiful years, singing for beautiful audiences, and feeling extremely grateful and lucky.
Julian, what about for you?
I think it's difficult to remember exactly, but I must have shown some kind of musical aptitude because my parents kind of put me up for a place at a choir school when I was 6 years old, here in London, in St Paul's Cathedral. And I think because they didn't have much money, they thought it was a really good way of giving me a good musical education. And so at 7, I went to this school, and we sang every day. Before we had breakfast, we were singing, practicing. So we'd do probably 2 or 3 hours of music a day. And it was an amazing, I suppose, amazing grounding, you know, for being a professional musician, and also gave me a deep love of just singing. And I think if you have that experience when you're a kid, even if you're a child performer, it can go two ways. Either you never want to do it ever again, certainly not for a profession, or it's just something you can't help but do.
Almost like the singing finds you, the voice and the path and the career finds you in a way.
I think so, because it's so ingrained. It's part of your routine and part of your chemistry, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that too. It's weird, isn't it? It's like it's just what you're meant to do, and it's hard to explain to me family and my friends, but it's like it's just what I'm meant to do. Yeah, that's how I felt.
We were lucky that we got to learn about your talents through being part of X Factor, but I guess there's a massive pressure off the back of that in terms of what do you do off the back of something that has such a tension on it, and you came out, you came out on top from that in terms of, look at the career that you've had since then as well. But there must have been a certain element of fear, kind of stepping away from that and it just being about you.
I think the first couple of months when I left the X Factor, it was very nerve-wracking because it's sudden fame. And you go from I was just a mum, I went to college, took the kids to school, and then all of a sudden, I remember I'd just come off the X Factor and I got the kids ready and I said, come on, we're going shopping in town. And I don't think I realised how big the show was. And so I went through a lot of different phases when I left the show of thinking, oh, I've got to keep me fame, or no, I've got to stay grounded. And so your mind just goes in all these different ways. And if I'm honest, it's 6 years, since the show now, and it's took me, I'm finally in a place where I understand fame and music, and I do it because I love it now, and I don't buy into the whole fame thing anymore. I realise that although it's a blessing, it's not a real, how can I put it, it's not a real thing. It's, real to me is my family and my children, and I've kind of found my reality, and that was a crazy time, yeah.
Well, you're going to be our first performer tonight, if that's okay. And you're going to perform the song that was that first step for you in terms of you being you, which was a huge success.
Thank you.
How nervous were you at releasing this song?
I was really nervous because it was quite different from your average pop song. So I was a bit worried, but thankfully it was received really well and people liked it.
You're going to perform it for us now, if that's all right. Rebecca's going to perform the song that we first heard from her after leaving X Factor, from her debut album, Heaven. She's going to be accompanied by Ross Stanley on piano. Please give a huge round of applause for Rebecca and Nothing's Real But Love.
Standing in a line, wonder why you don't move, trying to get ahead, watching people break the rules, and maybe the man in charge and doesn't like my face, but then this world's not always good, and nothing's real but love. And nothing's real but love. And no money, no house, no car is like a love. No, they watch us open-mouthed as we joke around like fools. See who can be the worst and watch what I can do. But then the door gets slammed right in my face. And I guess this world's not always good, and nothing's real but love. like a love. La, 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 la. La, 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 la. So I put it all away, holding it back for a rainy day. But what if that day don't come? I need love. 'Cause no money, no house, no car is like a love. Ooh. It won't fill you up. It won't fill you up. It won't build you up. It's not love. And nothing's real but love. And no money, no house, no car is like a love. And nothing's real but love. No money, no house, no car is like a love.
Fantastic. Gorgeous. I mean, we as an audience know how we get affected by hearing a voice. I mean, when you open the hairs on my arms, just like, yeah. But for you as a performer, what is that feeling when you're up there singing? What is the feeling that you're getting?
When I sing, I always try and think of something personal. I'm always trying to get something across that. So, for instance, someone really close to me is battling a really horrible disease at the minute, and so I know it sounds really dark, but when I sing, I translate all that pain and emotion, and so I often feel when I leave a stage, I can feel, and I don't know if you feel the same, but I feel exhausted because I feel like I've put that much of me emotion in it and soul, but I feel like I drain myself a little bit, I
hope we're not going to exhaust you all too much.
No. Yeah.
But do you think, in terms of the style of singing that you all have, I mean, I can't really. Your voice, Rebecca, is just it's timeless. It could be from kind of 40 years ago. It could be from 20 years ago. It's just got this amazing quality, timeless quality to it. But when you find your voice, does it define the genre or the type of singer that you are? I mean, Erwin, you said that you sung your first opera at 7.5. So from that point, it was opera. That was the type of singer that you wanted to be. That you.
No, it's continuously changing. It's a daily learning that is happening, and plus the body, your mind, your soul, your whole entire being is changing continuously, right? It's evolving, and somehow, sometimes as well, it is not only about evolving, but sometimes you're ill, sometimes you're sick, sometimes you are sad, sometimes you don't want to be there because you might want to be at home because someone is needing you at that time, and at that time you need to deal with, everything that it is surrounding you, and that might change your performance, because I think that all of us, we are performing live every single night, and that puts you need to raise always to the standard that the audience, that they deserve, obviously.
Yeah. Did you always know what type of singing you wanted to know?
I have no idea. I mean, I didn't really know.
Choir.
I didn't know whether I wanted to be a singer or an actor. I knew I wanted to perform, but I didn't know in what kind of way. And I suppose, and as a performer, I don't like to be defined. I don't like to be, hemmed in.
Yeah.
And that's why I try and do lots of different things, and also sing in different styles. Yeah. I'm going back to Rebecca. Why I think she's. Because I found it really moving. Such a wonderful sound.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it?
But I think one of the reasons why Rebecca's survived the whole X Factor circus and the social media that comes with that and the pressure is that there's a very, very transparent picture of you that comes through your voice. And that's what makes great singers. We are surrounded by people who imitate glorified karaoke on the television. And actually, it's really... singing is about communication, about telling, telling a story and telling how you feel, as Erwin said. And you get that there's an immediate, within 0.02 of a second, I was moved by the sound because it's connected to a human being.
Yeah.
And that's the glory of it. And why it makes you so vulnerable. Because there's nowhere to hide if you're doing it right.
Yeah.
What about if you're on stage? Because I imagine as performers, you get into that zone. You know, Rebecca, you talked about, you know, thinking about certain things that might be going on around you. But there must get a point where you have to control that emotion because you can't let it phase you. You need to get to a point to share that with the audience, but you also can't almost overindulge in that emotion so that it ruins the performance. Is that hard to control, or is that, you know, is that part of the learning experience to being a good singer and being a great performer? Or do you just let it go?
I let it go.
I mean, I try and let it go. I mean, I find it more, the older I get, I find it more difficult, actually. Having had children and, I don't know, I find it more kind of connected to the world, I suppose, and more emotionally, and also more tired. And I think the more tired you are, generally, like, the more kind of like...
Eighth show of the week, you're like that.
Well, you know, I think that... But it opens, you know, children open you out. And... but there is that fine line between not indulging the emotional, and that balance you have to strike between the technical demands of what you're doing and the emotional demands.
Yeah.
And I think for an audience, it can be a bit much to see someone, you know, the kind of... you don't necessarily need to see that thing. You know, but it's a hard balance to strike sometimes, particularly if it's something that means so much to you personally.
Yeah. I mean, Erwin, opera's kind of, you know, it pulls incredibly, not just on emotional,
in opera,
physical
you cannot
as well.
indulge yourself, definitely. You cannot go into extreme emotions and allow yourself to feel them so much, because otherwise you are going to be ruining the performance. But recently, I'm doing a tour of shows with Jose Feliciano, if you remember him. Yeah. And in that show as well, we performed together with my daughter, 17 years old, beautiful mezzo-soprano voice. And initially the idea was to sing Acércate Más with Nat King Cole and King Cole, sorry. Nat King Cole. Both of them together, not together. Yeah. They did this beautiful performance, right? And I immediately say, forget it. Because I will not be able to open my mouth as soon as my daughter will tell me, Acércate Más, which means, please come closer. I would just shut up and just try to disappear from the face of the earth. And we end up singing a beautiful Brazilian song. And I have to say that I was struggling during the whole entire performance to don't go into this almost crying thing.
Yeah.
You know,
How did you stop yourself?
Huh?
How did you stop yourself?
I didn't. I indulged myself because it was not opera. Yeah.
Do you think, you mentioned your daughter.
Yeah.
Is it an inherited talent? Do you think there's something in, you know, in terms of you're born with it? You're born with this talent, or can you learn to be a great singer?
I think everyone can sing, but not everyone is going to be a singer. And I think it takes a lot of...
You do master it, don't you?
Yeah, it's a craft. It's a real craft. And there isn't, people have natural gifts, but there's no, you're not Aretha Franklin overnight, you're not Frank Sinatra overnight. It takes, you know, hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of practice and of crafting and being able to, you know, doing it, you know, for 8 hours in a day in a studio or on, you know, in front of 100,000 people. That takes serious application. Yeah. You can't do that just on talent.
Glad you mentioned Frank Sinatra, Julian, because you're going to perform for us next, and there is a wonderful version of this song, and that's the great thing about, you know, when you have songs and you hear the different interpretations by different singers.
Sure.
What is it specifically about this song that makes a connection with you before you sing it for us?
Well, I'm going to do a song, a Rodgers and Hart song, called My Heart Stood Still, and it's from the 20s, but it has, as you said, a kind of timeless quality to it, like a lot of, you know, the music that Rebecca is suited to. That kind of Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, kind of the wonderful music of the 30s and 40s and 50s, early 50s. And the sentiment is just so pure, I think, of the song. It's very simple. But the way that the music is, when the words and the music are combined, there's great artifice in the simplicity of it. So,
Who did you first hear sing it, if you don't mind me asking? Can you remember?
I think it was Sinatra. Great.
Hey, you're making it your own, Julian.
So, should I sing it?
I'm very much looking forward to this, please. Give Julian a huge round of applause. My heart stood still.
Actually, we did Jason Carr, my pianist. We did this about 3 weeks ago for a TV special, an ITV TV special, and they forgot to put the brakes on the piano. And when we got to the kind of big bit, Jason started to move towards the orchestra pit. And Jonathan Ross, who was comparing the event, was like, I could see him going. So hopefully that won't. I laughed at sweethearts I met at school, all indiscreet hearts seemed romantic fools. A house in Iceland was my heart's domain. I saw your eyes, now castles rise in Spain. I took one look at you, that's all I meant to do, and then my heart stood still. My feet could step and walk, my lips could move and talk, and yet my heart stood still. Though not a single word was spoken, I could tell you knew that unfelt clasp of hands told me how well you knew. I never lived at all until the thrill of that moment when my heart stood still. Until the thrill of that moment when my heart stood still.
Wonderful. Oh. Thank you, Julian. What is it that you love about musical theatre and that style of singing?
Ooh, I don't know, because I think of opera as musical theatre, really, and I find it difficult. I mean, we're quite snobbish about musical theatre in England, I think, and I just like music that moves me, and I like, you know, that's dramatic and that has something to say. It's very difficult to sort of pin down exactly, you know, but I like lots of different types of music.
Yeah.
And I don't know, something about, I guess, being on stage in a character, I find it, I don't know, I find it thrilling and exciting and dangerous and terrifying. But, you know, I don't know.
I guess because within musical theatre, you're in difference to Rebecca. Rebecca's being herself on stage.
Yeah.
But with musical theatre, you're playing a character.
Yeah.
So you can kind of do what you want with it, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what I'm doing. If I'm doing something like that, that's more what Rebecca is doing. I mean, there are certain singers you know, pop singers like Beyonce who to be able to do what she does, she becomes a character. I can't remember, what's the character's name?
Sasha Fierce.
Sasha Fierce. I don't have a character. But I think, you know, it helps people to be able to get over that barrier, that nerve, you know, that sort of nerves barrier, feeling that vulnerability that we've been talking about. But I do, and sometimes it is freeing to be able to play something that's completely different from who you are.
Yeah.
You know.
In your experience with musical theatre, is there a difference between, say, American and British musical theatre for a performance side of things?
I think there's a kind of cliche about British musical theatre actors that we put the text first because of the sort of tradition of English actors. I don't know whether that's true now. I think the standard of singing and acting in general is pretty high, considering the amount of people who want to do it. I mean, becoming an actor now in musical theatre. I mean, seemingly every 16-year-old girl wants to be in Wicked or wants to be in Les Mis. It's such a, you know, it's an enormous explosion of demand to do this because of television, because of films, you know, movies that are, you know, musicals that have been made into movies. So I think I think the standard is really, really high.
It's wonderful to see.
Credit. Sorry to interrupt. I don't think musical theatre performers get enough credit. I mean, I worked recently with, I won't say the name, but I worked with a big stage production in London, and they were thinking of me as a potential. And I went through an audition process, and it is grueling. I was like, what note do you want me to hit? And how long is it staying there? No. And so I have got so much respect for...
and you've got to do it 8 times a week.
Discipline, there's such a... I've got so much respect. And I went to watch a few shows, and I was just in awe of how amazing the performers were, really. But
you all, you know, you all graft, you all put the work in for your different styles and your different, you know, if you're doing musical theatre, it's what, 8 shows a week?
It can be, yes.
And which is a big schedule. But then, you know, Rebecca, you're on tour.
Yeah.
You're in a different location every day, a different audience, different setup. You know, and opera as well in terms of the kind of physicality that goes into that performance.
Yeah.
You know, there's a mental kind of input into that, I think, as well in terms of what you do. It's hard work. Would you, yeah?
Yes. Yes. I mean, I think not enough people realise, in terms of opera, that there are no microphones. So it's a physical. It's like doing a decathlon.
Yeah, it's like a marathon.
I mean, it's extraordinary.
Yeah, it's just like a marathon.
Just to be able to be heard is a feat. It's a miracle, I think. I mean, I couldn't. I mean, I don't know how it's possible. It's certainly in the big. You know, if you're going to the Metropolitan in New York or. You know,
here, the Royal Opera House.
Or here,
yeah,
you know, the pressure.
Verona, 20,000 people, and you are placed there in a mausoleum, in a Colosseum, sorry. That it wasn't, sorry. My English is not perfect, and I'm not trying to fake, right? And you are in this Colosseum that it was built up 2,000 years ago in front of 20,000 people without any kind of amplification. Well, that is the beauty of as well being a performer. You have this chance of proving how beautiful is human body, human voice, the instrument.
It's amazing.
You say your English isn't very. Your English is very good.
Very good.
But also you have to sing in how many? I mean, how many different languages have you sung in? Do you sing in?
Few.
Italian, French, Polish.
No.
Okay. How does that work? Because you have to reach a place of emotional outpouring in a language that isn't your own language. That's a technique that you have to master to be able to do.
And I just speak all of them.
Fluently.
Yes.
That's amazing.
It's part of my job. I love
Do you
it.
have Is that part of the training, that you have to learn the language before you can sing the opera?
Well, in my case, I was lucky enough that I was living in so many places in the world during these 23 years of career. And that I live in Italy, I live in France, I live in Spain. Well, I'm native from there. And English, I learned it here, but I don't sing in English, unfortunately.
Never sung in English?
Never. There is no need. We have such a wonderful colleagues here.
What's your favourite language to sing in, or what's the most challenging language to sing in, actually?
Challenging?
Yeah.
Czech, probably, I would say. And the most beautiful one is all of them. All of them, they have a certain kind of a beauty. Portuguese is something very nice. Yeah.
Wow. Is it a different... I imagine then it's a different experience singing in each language. Like you say, like the most beautiful, you know...
Well, because if I will try, for example, to sing in English in the beautiful way that they do, there are certain nuances, there is certain melody in the language that me being a foreigner, I will lose somehow. I will not be able. But what I could do, it is me as a Spanish-speaking native, I will sing it with my own accent, and I will be the Latin guy that sings in English. And that is cool enough for me.
Yeah, there's been a few of those, and they love it. Definitely. Now, unfortunately, you're not going to sing live for us tonight, but there is a reason why you can't sing for us tonight.
It had been a very tough period. I am just coming from South America, where I was visiting my family, performing, opening a foundation for kids. And so it was a lot of beautiful work, a lot of beautiful news, a lot of beautiful smiles that we created as well there. But unfortunately, it got me quite weak because it was a lot of emotions. And I arrived here, and my beautiful girlfriend as well, we both got completely sick. And there is something that you cannot play with, which is your health. And from the moment that you are not doing well vocally-wise, it will be damaging, actually. I rehearsed the whole entire day. We are rehearsing Les Nozze di Figaro, a beautiful opera composed by Mozart. And all of you, you're invited. And I got very tired. That's it. I will love to perform for all of you, I promise.
Well, we're still going to be entertained, Byron, because we
I'm going to dance.
Yes! Off you, the floor is yours. As you say, you've been in rehearsals for the Marriage of Figaro, and you had cameras in rehearsals day as your performance will be really live to cinemas across the world in October. I'll give you more details on that later. But we have an extract that we're going to play out right now, which we're only going to be able to hear in here, which is all we need. But people who are watching online can watch. This is from, I believe, a performance from 2013. So here we go. This is Erwin.
Se vuol ballare, signor Contino, se vuol ballare, signor Contino, il chitarrino le suonerò, il chitarrino le suonerò, sì, le suonerò, sì, le suonerò. Se vuol venire nella mia scuola a capriola insegnerò. Se vuol venire nella mia scuola a capriola insegnerò, sì, insegnerò, sì, insegnerò. Saprò, 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 ma piano, piano, piano. E ogni arrecano dissimulando scoprir potrò. L'arte schermendo, l'arte adoperando, di qua pungendo, di là scherzando, tutte le macchine rovescerò. L'arte schermendo, l'arte adoperando, lavorando, di qua pungendo, di là scherzando, tutte le macchine rovescerò, tutte le macchine rovescerò, tutte le macchine rovescerò, rovescerò, rovescerò. Se vuoi ballare, signore continuo, se vuol ballare, signore continuo, il chitarrino le suonerò, il chitarrino le suonerò, sì, le suonerò, sì, le suonerò.
I kind of felt sitting here watching you whilst that was playing out that I got a kind of mime performance of that because you could see you were still kind of every note you were kind of there was movement.
I was so mad at myself.
Why?
Oh, because there is always so much room for improvement. And every time that I listen to myself, I realize how little I know. As simple as that. And I'm just not trying to be nice. It's completely the truth. In front of these kind of masterpieces, the biggest thing that I feel beside all the emotions is a big responsibility. Mm-hmm. It's a big responsibility to be singing all this wonderful music, all of it. It's our responsibility. And it's not only a pleasure. It's, we need a lot of commitment in order to do it, and to do it right, and to do it better every time.
Is that important for you to, I mean, do you constantly watch back and listen back to your performances?
Unfortunately, yeah. I hate it. I don't like it.
And what are you doing whilst you're doing that? Are you making notes? Are you...
Continuously, yeah. And
Wow.
plus, well, my job, I cannot call it job, you know. I'm coming from a very humble background as well. And I used to wash cars with my father at the age of 8.5, you know. And so what I am doing right now, I am enjoying life, and I'm right now at the Royal Opera House enjoying this wonderful music with the most beautiful cast, with the greatest of the conductors, with the greatest of the director. And then right now I am here with you. Imagine how I feel. Grateful.
Rebecca, do you constantly critique yourself? Is it something you feel like it's a constant learning thing where you listen back to performances or you watch back videos or whatever?
I don't like to watch myself. I don't like. I went through a phase, and it sounds really weird. I knew I could sing, but I hated my voice, which is weird. And I knew it was weird because I knew I could sing, but to listen to myself, I couldn't, and I couldn't watch myself. And so I went through a couple of years of. I think that was a confidence thing. And so now I'll go through phases. Sometimes I'll come off the stage and I'll go, that was awful, that was crap. I was out of tune, it was terrible. I'm never singing again. And then sometimes I'll go, whatever, I had fun. Yeah. And so I ended up learning that I have to, no matter what I do when I'm on stage, I have to enjoy it. Because, I don't know, you only live once. And I think you've got to get up there, whether you hit 1,000,000 bum notes, which I often do, as long as you've had a good time and the audience hopefully have had a good time, then that's what matters. Yeah. And so, because I was so overcritical, I just couldn't even watch myself. Yeah.
Julian, what about for you?
Yes, I'm very similar.
Yeah.
I aim for perfection, but perfection doesn't really exist, I guess, in music. That's why it's so special. Because there are imperfections, and that's what makes it interesting, and what makes different singers interesting and different performances of the same piece interesting. But yes, technically, there are lots of things that I'm always trying to work on, trying to get better, trying to have more control, trying not to, you know, trying to make a better sound, trying to phrase differently, phrase better, you know, intonation, all sorts of things that one works on as a singer, as you would if you were a golfer. You work on your, you know, short game and your drive and your psychological thing, your swing, you know, all that kind of thing. So it's pretty similar. Yeah. You know.
I guess, are you constantly in fear of illness, of getting a cold, of No, you're not.
Not in my case.
Not
No?
particularly.
I had tonsillitis the other week, and that was a nightmare. But often, when you've got something, it's hard when you've got, and you'll have the same if you've got like a line of shows.
Yes.
You pretty much it's get up on the stage because we've got tickets that need, you know, you need to commit to, and so in the end I find I'm on the honey, ginger, lemon, all that stuff, and I get on with it. But sometimes, like for instance, like what you must be like today, you just can't, and you've just got to say no. I've got to rest. It's hard.
It is hard from the moment, as you said, when all the tickets they are sold and there are people waiting for you and the producer and the theater and everyone is expecting you to do your part. Yeah. And sometimes we do push ourselves as well. In my case, I recently have to take certain medication in order to do a concert in Zurich and in Switzerland. And so I did. And I did it because of my commitment, because I don't want to fail to anybody. But you cannot do that all the time, because that is when you start to hear that so many singers, they become addicted to cortisone, for example. And that is not good, not only for your voice, but for your whole entire system. It's completely unadvisable to take cortisone, but if it happens that you must do it, well, it's up to you.
When you know that you have, you know, a big stretch of performances coming up, whether it's the start of a run of shows in the theatre or a tour or the same, you know, performance for you, does the lifestyle change? Do you have to kind of be quite disciplined in terms of what you do and you don't do? Julian, you've got a nice smile on your face.
Yes.
You come to
Well, I'd like to think so. Yes, but with children and the reality of life, it's very difficult. You know, I'm not allowed to go and shut myself off in the top room and just and actually, I don't know really how much it makes a difference. I mean, I've done gigs on no sleep. I've done gigs where I'm just completely wrecked and been able to get through it. I wouldn't advise it all the time, but the human body is extremely resilient. And I mean, I look after myself. I don't drink very much. I don't smoke. I fairly clean living. So, I mean, you know.
Yeah.
If I'm on tour, I can't drink, and I'll be honest, my bands normally have a really good time, and there's lots of partying, and I'm kind of the bore that is in bed really early, and so I'm aware of what I eat, and I am aware because I'm quite, I don't know, I find I can get sick easily, so I have to be extra careful, and it's really sensitive, my voice as well. It's very sensitive to anything, air condition, anything. It's really affected, so I have to be really careful. Although I'd be lying if I said I don't have nights out and, you know, have a drink and the occasional cigarette even. I'll be really honest. So yeah.
Do you notice a difference in the vocal cords and in your voice and in the tone from, you know?
If I've not looked at
if you've not looked at, if you haven't, yeah. Is it very obvious?
It's just very dry. Dehydrated. Yeah.
Sometimes it can be really irritating though, because the voice is so annoying because you can't control it. For example, I've been on holiday in France the last 2 weeks and I've been drinking every single day at lunch and supper, and I'm singing brilliantly. And if I'd not done that, I'd probably sing like crap. So I don't really, but it's so difficult. That's why, I mean, you know, trying to understand the voice is so hard, and no one has, you know, there are so many different teachers and we all have different techniques and we all have different, you know, ways of producing a sound. It's so fascinating and so unbelievably frustrating sometimes when you're trying to make a great sound, or you're trying to ensure that the performance is great, and for some reason it just doesn't work.
Yeah. And what about for you in terms of, you know, that idea that you...
For me, it's whatever it makes you happy.
But do you have to kind of, you know, when you know, like, for example, right now, you're in rehearsals for the March of Figaro.
In the rest of the beautiful 2 months that I'm planning to spend here in London, are they going to be exactly like today? No difference at all. My behavior will not change at all. Only if I will get sick, obviously. I will inhale some things because they are going to be good for the voice and blah, 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 blah. But the rest is all about enjoying life, basically.
Yeah.
I imagine that one of the most important things is preparation. Is that, you know, I heard this wonderful kind of warm up between you guys in the rooms before we came out and stuff, and preparing that voice. Is is it an incredibly important part of keeping that muscle healthy?
It's in the morning. At least for me, I wake up in the morning, I do. Done.
That's it.
That was like 3 seconds.
That's all you do.
That is what I do in the morning to say I will have a
I do this,
lovely performance.
but I do the same thing. I woke up and I go, oh.
And
If
your
I can
wife
do,
is by your side, no?
yeah, but she's a singer as well, so she understands.
There's harmonies going on when you
So
guys
it's
wake
like-
up.
Yeah, so there are lots of ticks that, but definitely, yeah. I mean, Pavarotti used to do he used to have like 3 or 4 different warm-ups. I don't know what he did during his day, but he seemed to he did scales at 9 o'clock, then he'd have a rest, some pasta, and then he'd do like another, and then another warm-up at 12, and then, you know, he had like a staggered...
And then you arrive tired to the
and
show.
then but, and some people they don't have to warm up at all, they're just there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ed Sheeran says that, doesn't he? Apparently he doesn't warm up.
Who doesn't?
Ed Sheeran, apparently.
Really?
Which I thought was amazing. I was like...
So you're basically ruling out that whole notion that healthy lifestyle equals healthy voice?
I think over a period of time, maybe it doesn't. But I mean, it's perfectly possible.
Yeah. Just don't overdo. Whatever you are going to be doing, don't overdo
Exactly.
it.
Moderation.
Just enjoy it. Moderation, exactly.
Well, talking about excesses, I mean, Billie Holiday is an example of someone whose life, you know, she took it to the excess. But again,
She was fine, wasn't she? Just
those,
not when you
yeah,
think
I mean,
of it.
those performances, you couldn't tell that she, you know, she was having a great old time off stage, or maybe not having a great time. But what is it about her and her voice that you love, Rebecca, and that you've chosen to interpret her work?
For me, it was her honesty. She's just honest. She's when she got up on stage, from what I've read about her, and I feel like I've really got to know her after recording Lady Sings the Blues. She was somebody that sang because it was just built in her to sing, and how can I put it? She just means every word. And I'll be honest, I didn't understand it until I watched her live. You have to watch the videos. I didn't understand it, but then when you watch her sing a song, she sings Strange Fruit, and every word, you just feel it.
Yeah, I remember.
It's haunting.
I remember seeing Diana Ross in the film Lady Sings the Blues. It was my introduction to Billie Holiday's work, and then kind of going back and watching and listening to Billie Holiday do it and stuff. Were you nervous about you know, reworking that music for Lady Sings the Blues?
I was, and I wasn't sure, and I was thinking, no, because it's older than me, how the music is, and I was a bit like, oh, well, what should I do? And then I started to record, and I just fell in love with it, and fell in love with jazz, because I loved that you can be free on stage, and that's always been something I've fought with, is that I couldn't feel relaxed. And then when I started to sing jazz, it was like the musicians I work with said, well, there's no rules. We play what we feel. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Why haven't I been doing this? And so I went to like Ronnie Scott, the jazz clubs, and I was playing with some of the musicians there, and they just play what they feel, and it's just fun. And that's what I loved about it.
Has it changed your performance, do you think, and changed your, I don't know, the technique or the way that you sing?
When it comes, I'm writing my new album now. It's changed how I write, because when I listen to the Gershwin music, I realise how much thought went into it, yeah, as well as feeling. It was great melodies, it's great music first, so it's made me really think, yeah.
Well, will you perform a track for us now?
Have a go.
Amazing. From her album, her reworking of Billie Holiday's classic album, Lady Sings the Blues, Rebecca's going to perform Fine and Mellow for us.
Thank you.
don't love me, treats me oh so mean. My man, he don't love me, treats me awfully, and he's the lowest man that I've ever seen. He was a high-trim pant, stripes are really yellow. He was a high-trim pant, stripes are really yellow. But when he started to love me, he's so fine and mellow. Love will make you drink and gamble, make you stay out all night. And love will make you drink and gamble, make you stay out all night. And love will make you do things that you know ain't right. But if you treat me good, baby, I'll stay home every day. And if you treat me good, baby, I'll stay home every day. But you're so mean to me, baby, you know you're gonna drive me away. And love is just like a faucet, turns it off and on. And love is just like a faucet, turns it off and on. And sometimes when you think it's on, baby, it's gonna turn it off and on. That boy's gonna turn me away. Said that boy's gonna turn me away. Said that boy's gonna drive me insane.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Originally written by Billie Holiday in 1939. But that's the amazing thing, is that that's then going to introduce the music of Billie Holiday to a whole new generation from, you know, from you doing this whole album. We got some questions from people on social media.
Yo.
Hi, people out on the internet. This is from Lou Parker, who's watching on YouTube. She says, she's got two questions actually. Is busking something you'd advise for up-and-coming singers? Who would like to answer that?
Is what?
Busking?
Busking?
Anyone know a translation of into?
Street singing.
Yeah, street singing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Basket.
Why not?
Ah, basket.
I mean,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, you're singing in public.
It's a great way to master your craft, I think, definitely, because you've got a constant audience and you can't be ashamed because you're in front of that many people, so it's good for confidence.
Yeah, I was going to say that, because do you have to have confidence to get on stage?
No. Yes, no, yes, I don't know. I don't
I'm
know.
not sure.
I don't know.
Do you have confidence? Do you have confidence before you get on stage, or just being on
Sometimes.
that stage?
Sometimes I do, sometimes I'm terrified.
What terrifies you?
All sorts of things. Making a fool of myself, not doing it right, you know, I don't know, I mean, many things.
Rebecca, do you think you have to have confidence to... Or does it help with confidence being on the stage?
I think I have a saying, you can wing it. I wing life. I think if you don't have confidence, you have to... I don't know, it's hard for me because sometimes I'm confident, sometimes I'm not. I think you can sing and not be confident, and I think a lot of great singers have done that. But I think, I don't know, it's a bit of a grey area, really,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Aaron, what about for you?
Yes, I think so.
You need to have...
Because, you know, usually for every opera that I'm singing, I take a period of studying which is usually 24 months, day by day, around 4 hours every day, singing, and after that it's all about the story, the history, whatever it is behind, right? So from the moment that I'm gonna go on the stage, I'm over-prepared. That is how I like to arrive to the stage. If something is gonna occur or happen, that it will hit me or strike me bad, like, being tired, being sick, all the things. Well, at that moment, you can have as much confidence as you want, but man, it's not going to happen.
Do you ever get nervous?
Yeah, I think so. Depends on which occasion, but I think so, yeah.
What are the things that might make you nervous?
If I have, I don't know. For example, it happened to me many years ago that I lost lines. I start to forget lines in Italiano. There is a beautiful opera that is called L'Elisir d'Amore, and you repeat 3 times exactly the same melody with different lines and extremely fast. And I lost it. And there were 8,500 people in front of me. And once you lost it, you cannot get it back because you are nervous and you start to you're trying to be convincing. So confidence helps.
You're nodding away there, Rebecca. Can you relate to that?
I can relate to losing lines. It's funny because I was always so good with my lines, and then I just went through a phase last year of like forgetting my lines. I was like, but I've always known my lines. Why? And then, but then the seeds planted then, and then you start thinking, oh, every time I sing, I'm going to forget my lines. Yeah.
It's a vicious circle.
Yeah, it is.
Lou's other question was, I often hear people talk about freeing the voice. What does that mean to you? Erwin, what does that mean to you?
Not usually, we were just talking about that before. Not feeling any kind of a pressure or any kind of a muscular tension. Here, everything has to be here. You have to be able to, as I am talking and moving my head in every single direction, I should be able to do exactly the same when I'm singing. That's how I see it. That is freedom for me. And everything is controlled from here.
Wow, I like that. Nothing changed in your voice at all when you did that. Mine squeaks when I put my head back. Kim says, how early can kids start singing classes?
Classic or classics in
Both.
general?
In your field, how young would you say they should start classes?
But I think that is in every field, because there is the moment that you are changing your voice and your puberty, and you have to be very careful about what you are doing with your kids at that time, because the voice is changing so much that you might hurt it. You might hurt it, yes.
Yeah?
Yeah. You know that we kids, for example, I was a soprano when I was a kid, and all of a sudden I started to talk like an orc, like this. And I was with excellent teachers that they were telling my mother at that time, and to myself as well, to take it easy, to don't overdo. To sing, but sing in chorus, not mainly in main parts, solo parts and all this, just, you know, to keep it starting, basically.
Yeah. Well, was there, I mean, I don't know if it's a given that if you start singing before your voice breaks, that you're still going to have a voice once it breaks. Is that a given, or is it still?
I have no idea.
You don't know.
I don't think you know.
Yeah.
I think going back to children, I think it's important that children are encouraged to express themselves as much as possible and sing as much as possible. I mean, the only thing I'd say about classes, and it goes back to sort of the competition thing, is that we get so wound up about competitions.
Yeah.
And really, it's nothing to do with competition. At the end of the day, it's a TV format that's suddenly kind of spun us out of all. What we're doing is telling stories.
Yeah.
And kids need to do that freely without being judged
Yeah.
all the time and
Yeah.
evaluated and compared and contrasted with other kids. Just be free and sing. There's nothing better than listening to I mean, I don't know about you, but there's nothing better than waking up and hearing my children singing. Just completely, I mean, it's just, it's heaven.
Getting the words wrong and just making it, it's brilliant.
Cares?
It's the best thing
But
ever.
who cares? It's so natural and free, and you know, and long may that last. And the world will be a happier place if all our politicians sang in the shower.
You get a round of applause for that one. That's brilliant. But from your experience from being, you know, in a choir from a very young age, would you encourage that? Would you say that was a good thing in terms of being that young and having
It depends
lessons?
on the child. It depends on the, you know, it really depends, I think. I think it's an amazing experience, but not for everyone. I think, you know, it goes back to the child performer thing and whether that's a good thing, you know, because there's a lot of pressure. And
I think it also goes back to that thing that we talked about earlier about whether it's you're born with it or whether you learn it.
Yes.
Because I think it doesn't matter what age you start, if you've got it, you've got it. And it's there. It just needs kind of encouraged to be brought out.
Some people can push some children genuinely want to do it, and some people can push the children to do something that isn't who they're meant to be. I think it's important to gauge whether your child is naturally wanting to sing. I don't like the pushy mum thing, you know, like I had a lot of that when I was growing up, when I used to go to a lot of classes, but I used to take myself. I'd be like, Mum, come on, I'm going to sing. But I used to watch that a lot with the competitiveness and mums wanting children to compete in it. I found it really weird. Yeah.
Do you think there are certain genres of music that are more competitive than others? You know, in terms of, is the opera world competitive?
Extremely, of course. Not in a bad way. That is why you study so much. You have the right to be competitive, and you are in a continuous competition all the time, because, as we said before, you are being tested every single evening, and you better be at your best.
So would you say the musical theatre world is, your experience of being competitive?
Very competitive. Very, very competitive. But people get competition around the wrong way, I think. I mean, I think we're all competitive human beings, but we're competitive with ourselves, I would suggest. I think once you start being competitive with other people, you go mad. Yeah. Because you can't control it. You can't control other people. And, you know, it frustrates me, this obsession with competition, because we're missing the point. And I think it's a great shame that we're not investing in music and art and dance and, you know, more in our schools. I don't mean this to be a political rant, but it's so important that it's not just something we see on television in a competition format.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. We're going to let the music do the talking next, if that's okay. I'm so excited to hear you sing this, because I heard you in rehearsal and it's absolutely wonderful. I love West Side Story. When did you first discover or hear West Side Story?
I first heard it, I did it at school.
Yeah.
It was the
Did you play Tony?
I did not, actually. No, I didn't play Tony. I played a character called Action. It was the first time I kind of discovered, I was about 14 years old. I was at an all-boys school, and the girls came from the neighbouring girls' school. So it was the first time I really kind of discovered girls. So
did they play the girl parts?
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
So it was a very important, seminal time in my life. But also the music is incredible. I mean, it changed the face of musical theatre. But the story is so wonderful, and I get to sing it this Saturday at the Proms, which is very exciting. It scares the life out of me because it's hard. It's about as close to sort of opera, I guess, as you get in musicals.
What scares you about it?
The high notes. Now I'm really opening myself up. But yeah, you know, it's fairly difficult.
It's wonderful. And he's going to sing Maria for us right now. Please give a huge round of applause. Julian Ovenden singing Maria from West Side Story.
The most beautiful sound I ever heard. Maria, 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 Maria. All the beautiful sounds of the world in a single word. Maria, 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 Maria. I've just met a girl named Maria, and suddenly that name will never be the same to me. Maria, I've just kissed a girl named Maria, and suddenly I found how wonderful a sound can be. Maria, say it loud and there's music playing. Say it soft and it's almost like praying. Maria, I'll never stop saying Maria, 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 say it loud and there's music playing. Say it soft and it's almost like praying. Maria, I'll never stop saying Maria. The most beautiful sound I ever heard.
Beautiful.
You know, talking about, you know, I just wish I'd have another go at certain bits of it. Oh, it's hard. It's hard.
I think we all enjoyed that, didn't we? It was absolutely wonderful. It's wonderful. What does that song make you feel when you sing it?
Makes me feel 20. I can't wait to be too old to sing it.
Really, that was my next question about how age affects, aging affects the voice. Does it? Does your voice, is it constantly changing? Is it? Rebecca, do you notice?
Mine changed, it did. And I remember I was speaking to a woman and she studied psychology, and she said to me, your voice is very different. She said, I can hear the pain in your voice. And she said, I believe that certain life experiences can change the anatomy and the anatomy of somebody's voice. And I thought about it, and I listened back to old recordings when I was much younger, and my voice had changed. And so I do feel like your voice can develop. Yeah, I do believe that, yeah.
Erwin, do you think that too? Do you notice your voice is
Continuously, yeah.
In what way? Is it the tone? Is it the...
For better, for worse, sometimes is... sometimes
like a marriage.
Yeah, it is a marriage actually. For me, it's her. I have a personal relationship, obviously, with every part of myself. This is a temple, and I'm trying with the temple as well, go through, with the voice through the temple as well, right? Because you need to use your whole entire being in order to sing. This is not only about these two little tiny things here, but they are the ones that they build up the sound. The vibration is being born there. Sometimes she's in such a great mood, and she's treating me like her best friend. And sometimes she just refuses to have a good relationship with me, and I have nightmares while being awake, and I have to deal with her all the time. And not only me, everyone in my surrounding as well.
What can you do? What can you do to get her back on side?
Studying, practice, until that you hit it and you just place it in one.
Rebecca, you mentioned about listening back to old recordings, and all of you have performed live and recorded. Have you recorded, Julian? Yes. Is that a different experience? Is that a different technique that you use from performing live to performing live for a studio recording?
No, I try not to think of it too much, too different, really. Because I think you want to capture that live excitement when, you know, the great recordings, I think, are the ones that you feel like it's happening in the moment, rather than being pieced together, you know, in 150 jigsaw pieces. So that's my experience. It's quite, you know, I've recorded lots of different types of music, so that's how I would approach it. You know, is trying to be as in the moment as possible.
Yeah. Rebecca, what about for you?
Sorry, my mind's gone blank. I was thinking away then.
In terms of the performing live and in the recording studio, is it a different performance technique for you?
Well, that's what I was just thinking about then. I was thinking about how back in the day when they used to record, they had one roll of tape, and so you literally had to capture the moment, because it was like, well, we're all out of tape. And so I think it's important for me when I'm recording to make sure that I capture as it would be if it was live. And I think they're the best takes. I think sometimes you can overly record somebody's voice. And I think sometimes you should capture the moment. Yeah.
Erwin, is it easy for you to get into that performance within that kind of slightly, I guess, confined?
No, it is not. And I think that recordings, I'm an exclusive artist from Sony, so I don't think that they are going to be very happy about what I'm going to say. I think that recording, they are so manipulated, and that they are not really, I mean, the recordings that you do in a studio, they end up editing, post-editing, pre-editing, blah, 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 that at the end is not exactly what the performance is about. It's about creating a product that is actually spoiling your ears. And I happen to don't agree completely. I go more into the live performance, and I buy that.
Yeah.
I buy the ticket, I go there, and I buy every single mistake that is going to happen during the show as well, because that is how beautiful it is.
Yeah. Imperfections are a beautiful thing, I think. Last question, killer question. What's the key lesson that you've learned in your career so far that you'll never forget? Julian?
So many.
Thanks for coming to me first. Very simple. Be yourself. Because that's all you've got. And I think in art, that's the most interesting thing.
Yeah. Rebecca?
Yeah, I'd say honesty is everything, really. Honesty. Don't lose that in music or showbiz or whatever line you're in with work. Honesty, and enjoy what you're doing. You've got to enjoy singing. You've got to make sure that it's fun. Yeah.
Exactly that. Plus, I will say, do not compare yourself with anyone, and do not allow anybody to compare you with anyone.
Yeah. Brilliant. What great advice to end on. Sadly, I'm afraid it's time to finish our discussion this evening. It's been absolutely enlightening and fascinating. Thank you guys so much. And thank you so much to you guys, our lovely, attentive and very appreciative audience as well, and to you guys watching, wherever you may be watching on the World Wide Web. If this has, however, sparked your interest in singing, there's plenty more information and things to discover at the Royal Opera House YouTube channel. So whether that's masterclasses, films, clips, it is in fact a treasure trove. So just head to the Royal Opera House YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Royal Opera House. And if you want to see more of these three, we'll start with Julian, who you're recording it on Saturday, I think, but we can see it on the 11th of September on BBC4 at 7:30, the Bernstein Proms, which is very exciting. I'm very much looking forward to that. Rebecca, you're going to be on tour, kicking off on the 22nd of January for the Lady Sings the Blues tour at the New Theatre in Oxford. And finally, don't forget, you can see Erwin in action in The Marriage of Figaro in cinemas worldwide Monday, the 5th of October. For more details, head to the Royal Opera House website. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, for performing, and to our audience as well. Thank you so much, and good night. Thank you.